Table Mountain National Park's Sandstone Plateau supports more than 2,200 plant species, more species per square meter than the entire United Kingdom, making it one of the planet's richest floral hotspots. Do you know the Blyde River Canyon shelters ancient cycads older than many modern animal lineages and creates rare microclimates that nurture plants and insects found nowhere else on Earth? Tsitsikamma cradles one of South Africa's last Afro-temperate coastal forests, a green corridor of ancient milkwood giants. Do you know Tsitsikamma's name comes from the Khoekhoe words for place of abundant clear water, and its streams still run crystal clear? The storm's river carves a dramatic mouth where a simple suspension bridge frames the ocean. Walkers who cross it feel the raw meeting of river and surf that sculpted this coastline for millennia. Follow the Otter Trail, and you trace a rugged 5-day path of secluded coves, tidal pools, and silent forests. Hikers often encounter rare fynbos, nesting cormorants, and the ghost-like footprints of small endemic mammals. The park's kelp forests offshore are underwater cities, feeding whales, dolphins, and the occasional great white that patrols the edge. Local guides point out how seasonal upwellings turn these waters into plankton-rich feasts that ripple through the food web. Conservation here is intimate and visible, from rewilding coastal dunes to protecting the ancient milkwoods from invasive species. Scientists monitor birdsong changes and shellfish survival as clues to the shifting climate affecting the garden route. Tsitsikamma connects the wild lung of the Outeniqua Mountains to the shimmering bays of Pilanesberg and Kgalagadi. That corridor is vital, allowing species to move, seeds to spread, and the coastline to breathe through seasons. Stories from local communities add another layer. Fishermen, forestry workers, and Khoekhoe descendants who track tides and legends. Their knowledge reveals hidden coves and medicinal plants that tourists pass without noticing, unlocking another era of the park. Visit in winter to watch storm fronts smash into cliffs, and return in summer when calm seas reveal kelp gardens. Either season, the park insists on slow travel, asking visitors to listen more than they speak and to leave no trace. In Tsitsikamma, every footstep becomes a link between past and future, an invitation to protect what remains wild. Stay with that thought as we move along the garden route to places where sea and forest tell new chapters. The suspension bridges sway underfoot is a small, honest reminder of how fragile these ecosystems are. In the next segment, we'll cross from Tsitsikamma's green walls toward the lagoons and estuaries that shape Kgalagadi's story. Pilanesberg National Park sits within one of the world's largest and best-preserved ancient alkaline volcanic complexes, formed roughly 1.2 billion years ago. Do you know that its concentric rings and sunken calderas sculpted a mosaic of ridges and valleys that trap water and nourish a remarkable variety of life? This geological backbone makes Pilanesberg not just scenic, but uniquely self-sustaining, with permanent pans and rivers supporting wildlife, even in dry years. Here the Big Five roam across bushveld plains, mopane woodlands, and rocky kopjes, their movements shaped by the park's ring topography. Birdlife explodes across the waterholes, from humble wagtails to majestic fish eagles, turning ordinary days into unexpected encounters. Conservation projects reintroduced species that were once lost, and today, healthy herds of zebra, impala, and giraffe move alongside predators and cautious rhino. Because Pilanesberg sits so close to Sun City, you can shift from resort glamour to raw wilderness in a single afternoon, a rare contrast almost nowhere else in the country. That proximity also made Pilanesberg a conservation success story. Accessible tourism funds, sustained habitat restoration, and anti-poaching efforts. Game drives follow ancient volcanic ridgelines, where guides read spoor-like chapters in an old book, leading to secret pans where animals gather at dusk. At those pans, the light softens, shadows lengthen, and predators and prey stage silent dramas that reveal the park's fragile balance. Beyond the animals, Pilanesberg's close-knit network of eco-lodges and community projects links visitors to local cultures who steward this land. Walking trails and night safaris add layers to the experience, each activity a new way to understand how geology and life entwine here. From the crater rim, you can trace the horizon toward distant reserves, imagining a chain of protected places threading across South Africa's wild heart. And as sun gives way to stars, Pilanesberg reminds us that ancient forces created a landscape where biodiversity still writes its own story. Visit in the green season, and the landscape blooms with grasses and newborn antelope. Visit in winter, and the clarity of light reveals every ridge and silhouette. Either way, the park's mix of volcanic geology, reliable water, and thoughtful management makes it one of the most rewarding wildlife destinations near Johannesburg. For filmmakers and photographers, Pilanesberg offers intimate scenes and grand panoramas, sometimes in the same frame, where geology frames life in startling ways. So when you map your South African journey, let Pilanesberg be the hinge between luxury and wilderness, and a living lesson in how ancient Earth still shapes our wildest encounters. Here in the Cape Winelands, South Africa's ancient Cape Fold Mountains cradle an unmatched pocket of the Cape Floral Kingdom. Do you know the Cape Winelands hides cooler microclimates, like Elgin and Baudelaire, that produce delicate, world-class cool climate wines? These microclimates exist because cold Atlantic breezes funnel inland through river valleys, reshaping grape character and aroma. Stellenbosch lanes lead past centuries-old oak avenues and Cape Dutch homesteads that still ferment history into their cellars. Franschhoek, where French Huguenots settled, marries artisanal kitchens to vineyards, creating culinary experiments that visitors rarely anticipate. Paarl's granite tors gleam with pearly lichens, a geological signature that lent the town its name meaning pearl. Hidden water springs feed ancient irrigation furrows, and secret kloofs shelter rare orchids and seldom-seen bird nesting. Vineyard soils change dramatically across a few hectares, from decomposed granite to shale and heavy clay, altering wine personalities. Winemakers here harvest by tasting soil as much as tasting fruit, responding to micro-terroir with single vineyard bottlings. Some estates protect remnant patches of Renosterveld, tiny biodiversity islands that host endangered bulbs and ground-dwelling mammals. Conservation-minded vintners fence off streams and replant indigenous hedgerows that reconnect vineyards to the surrounding fynbos mosaic. At dawn, mist curls from the Jonkershoek Valley into rows of vines, lending acidity and spine to morning-pressed grapes. Cellar doors double as laboratories where ancient winemaking techniques meet experimental yeast and low-intervention philosophies. Hidden beneath some estates are unmarked archaeological layers from Khoisan communities who tended these landscapes long before vines arrived. Walking between rows, you can still find traces of stone tools and middens that whisper of human continuity. The winelands fold seamlessly into Table Mountain's foothills, a landscape conversation that channels cool maritime influence inland. From vineyard to summit, the water that shapes this terroir eventually feeds the Cape's dazzling coastal ecosystems. Taste here is geography made liquid. Tannins that echo sandstone, perfumes that recall protea fields, and acids scented by sea air. Stay with us as we follow a single grape from vine shoot to glass, revealing secrets the Cape Winelands rarely let slip. Kgalagadi Transfrontier Park's endless red dunes and salt pans host the world's densest population of black-maned Kalahari lions, a survival story written in sand. Do you know Kgalagadi Transfrontier Park straddles South Africa and Botswana to create one of the largest cross-border wildernesses on Earth, where drought and predator meet in cinematic balance? Here, the dry Nosab and Awab rivers pulse only after rare rains, turning barren flats into sudden, short-lived lakes that redraw the map for months. Clever predators, patient raptors, and nomadic herbivores read these hidden scripts and tune their lives to the park's heartbeat. By day, the landscape seems emptied, an austere palette of red sand and scrub. But night reveals a velvet cosmos where lions and hyenas trade the ski for silent stalks. The famous black-maned lions, adapted to heat and sparse prey, patrol territories that glow orange at dusk and leave spoor that tells ancestral tales. Kgalagadi's social dramas play out on open ground, from intense cheetah chases to meerkat sentinel systems operating like miniature democracies. Birdlife explodes after rains, flamingos on seasonal pans, martial eagles circling like sentinels, and larks whose songs stitch the horizon. A simple sand road becomes a living page of biodiversity. Every spoor, every feather, every hoofprint links back to survival strategies older than maps. Because the park is unfenced across borders, its migratory stories ripple into neighboring conservation areas, making Kgalagadi a linchpin in a larger landscape of life. Visitors are asked to slow down, to read the subtle language of the Kalahari, where silence often speaks louder than sight. Out here, skies are catalogs of light, and the nights teach you to listen for rustles that mean either dinner or danger. Conservation efforts here are intimate and transnational, blending indigenous knowledge with modern science to protect waterholes and the species that depend on them. Every rehabilitated dune and preserved pan becomes a paragraph in the cross-border story of resilience against climate extremes. At waterholes, entire life histories compress into a single day. Calves learning to drink, predators timing their hunts, and birds mapping the seasonal riches. Night drives here are not spectacle tourism. They are lessons in restraint, teaching observers how predators and prey choreograph an invisible balance. Local communities and rangers share stories and strategies, turning conservation into a living conversation rather than a distant policy. From these shared efforts, Kgalagadi's fragile miracles extend outward, inviting us to follow the red road toward the next unfolding landscape. Cape Point sits within the Cape Floristic region, the world's smallest floral kingdom bursting with endemic plants. Do you know Cape Point shelters orchids and proteas that grow nowhere else on Earth? Swept cliffs, the fynbos spreads like a living mosaic stitched to granite and shale. Sea spray and mist nourish a fragile carpet of teacup-shaped ericas and silver-leaved wildflowers. Below, currents swirl where nutrient-rich Benguela waters meet warmer seas, feeding one of the richest marine ecosystems. That invisible mixing draws pelagic birds, migrating whales, and schools of sardine into a seasonal carnival of why. Cape Point's shoreline is littered with stories, shipwrecks, ghostly masts, and the iron taste of maritime history. Lighthouses stand sentinel, their lights once vital to sailors navigating the treacherous Cape of Good Hope headlands. Black-backed gulls wheel over tidal pools where rock lobsters and abalone hide among kelp forests. Divers find ancient reefs draped in colorful sponges, while penguins and cormorants claim sun-drenched ledges. On the cliffs, Chakma baboons patrol narrow trails, their theatrical presence linking mountain and sea. Guided paths wind from the viewpoint down to hidden coves, carved by millennia of waves. Conservation here is urgent and inspiring because so many species are endemic and vulnerable to change. Local rangers and researchers work to restore fynbos, track whales, and monitor kelp beds against warming seas. Visit at dawn when light sharpens the cliffs and seals bark from offshore rocks like distant drones. A single hour can reveal proteas in bloom, a pod of dolphins, and a lighthouse keeper's solitary silhouette. From Cape Point, the coastline unfurls toward Cape Agulhas, where myth and ocean currents finally meet. The landscape teaches that South Africa's wild heart is stitched from mountain, fynbos, and the restless sea. Long after you leave, the scent of salt and the memory of those cliffside flowers will follow you home. And if you listen closely, you might still hear the old safety whispers woven into the ocean wind. Along a 200-kilometer ribbon of coastal forest, lagoons, and mountains in South Africa, the garden route cradles one of the world's rarest botanical mosaics, where fynbos, indigenous forests, and coastal thickets meet. Do you know, the garden route is home to the Knysna seahorse and several endemic plant species that exist nowhere else on Earth. Begin in Mossel Bay, where the ocean still remembers explorers and the dunes guard fossils tens of thousands of years old. From there, winding roads thread through ancient yellowwood forests into Knysna's shimmering estuary, a meeting place of river and sea. Knysna owes its secret charm to hidden lagoons and an island that legends say protects the town from storms. Beyond Knysna, the route slips into Tsitsikamma, where rivers carve granite canyons and the indigenous forest hangs like a living cathedral. Here, the Otter Trail hugs headlands and suspension bridges cross ravines filled with the scent of wild resin. Local guides read the land with an intimacy born from generations, pointing out medicinal plants and secret waterholes. If you trace the route's edge by foot, boat, or bike, each day folds into another of towering cliffs, hidden coves, and silent forests. As evening falls, the sky over the garden route unfurls stars so bright they seem to sketch the coastline itself. The garden route is more than a scenic drive. It's a living corridor where species converge, persist, and sometimes reveal evolutionary surprises. Follow it, and you'll understand why botanists, conservationists, and peats have kept returning for centuries. Beyond its postcard views lie contentious conservation battles, secret rewilding projects, and communities reinventing how to live with the land. Here, cultural stories meet wilderness management, and every preserved dune or restored wetland matters to the planet's fragile biodiversity ledger. From the sun-baked savanna and coastal cliffs, we now confront the Ukhahlamba-Drakensberg Park, whose basalt amphitheaters form the highest continuous escarpment in southern Africa and cradle the dramatic plunges of Augrabies Falls. Do you know that Ukhahlamba means barrier of spears, and that the park contains over 35,000 recorded sand rock art sites, some of the densest and oldest collections of prehistoric paintings anywhere on Earth? Here, mist-wrapped peaks rise above grassy plateaus, where rare relict plant communities survive from a cooler ice age, and endemic species like the Drakensberg rock jumper hop between shale ledges. Streams born on these heights feed the great inland rivers, carving deep gorges and creating wetlands that act as natural sponges for the lowlands below. The light in the Drakensberg is thin and sharp. It scours every fold of rock and throws ancient paintings into sudden clarity when the sun strikes them at certain hours. Hikers on narrow ridgelines pass stone cairns and centuries-old footpaths, once used by Basotho herders, linking human stories to the mountain's geological history. In the protected Ukhahlamba World Heritage Area, conservationists monitor rare amphibians that live only in high mountain pools and floral communities that occur nowhere else on the planet. From these summits, you can see how the Drakensberg threads into the highlands of Lesotho, forming a shared rampart that has shaped borders, languages, and livelihoods. As we leave the park's serrated skyline, remember that every pool, painting, and cliff face is a page in a story older than modern maps. Next, we'll follow the rivers that begin here and trace how they nourish the plains and towns beyond, connecting the Drakensberg to the rest of South Africa's living landscape. Table Mountain National Park shelters part of the Cape Floristic region, the smallest but richest floral kingdom on Earth, with over 9,000 plant species and an astonishing concentration of endemic fynbos. Do you know Table Mountain National Park alone contains more plant species than the entire United Kingdom and hosts unique proteus, ericus, and a bewildering array of succulents found nowhere else? The plateau's shifting microclimates create isolated pockets where tiny, rare plants evolved over millennia, some restricted to single ridges or cliffs. From the wind-sculpted silver trees to carpets of flowering fynbos after fires, the park is a botanical puzzle box waiting to be decoded. Beyond plants, the park shelters charismatic wildlife like rock hyraxes called dassies, Cape sugarbirds that pollinate proteus, and stealthy caracals that haunt the fynbos at dusk. Bird life is prolific, with black eagles riding thermals above vertical cliffs and endemic sunbirds flitting among nectar-rich blooms. Geologically, Table Mountain's ancient sandstone reveals layers of time. Its flat summit, a relic of landscapes shaped more than 600 million years ago. Every footpath connects to another story. Kirstenbosch's cultivated gardens, coastal coves where whales pass, and historic sites that echo South Africa's past. To walk Table Mountain National Park is to follow living threads that tie botany, geology, and human history into a single, breathtaking tapestry. There are hidden ridges where rare species cling to survival, and shadowed valleys that reveal secrets only revealed to the patient explorer. Stay with us as we descend into those micro-worlds to uncover the tiny giants of the fynbos and the surprising links between this mountain and the wider Cape Peninsula. Augrabies Falls National Park is where the Orange River plunges 56 meters into a granite gorge, creating one of the planet's most dramatic single drops and a spray that can be seen for kilometers. Do you know Augrabies Falls National Park's granite walls expose Precambrian rock, billions of years old, and host a microclimate that allows rare desert-adapted plants to thrive in its shadow? The name Augrabies comes from an old Keiko phrase, meaning place of great noise, and when floods surge, the roar still matches that ancient description. In summer, The Orange River swells with thunderstorms far upstream, and the falls transform into a white curtain that plasters mist onto the canyon walls and fuels ephemeral riverine greenery. Between the spray and the sunlight, unexpected pockets of life cling to ledges, endemic succulents, lichens, and tiny shrubs that have adapted to drink from wind-blown moisture. Wildlife here is shaped by extremes. Klipspringer and rock hyrax hop the crags, dassies sun themselves on warmed stone, and raptors ride thermal columns above the gorge. Even in drought, the river's deep pools sustain otters and a resilient array of fish, while seasonal floods reset life across the floodplain. The park's trails and viewpoints were forged to follow this interplay of stone and water, each vantage revealing layers of geology and the slow artistry of erosion. Local guides speak of the subtle sounds, wind through the gorge, the hiss of spray, the click of lizards, that become a map for those who know the terrain. But Augrabies is not an isolated spectacle. It is a hinge in the landscape where the Orange River begins its final run to the Atlantic, linking to the arid Richtersveld and beyond. Follow the river and you trace corridors of life and culture, from gorge to coast, and discover how this inland thunder connects to deserts, dunes, and coastal ecosystems farther west. In the next segment, we'll move along that corridor, tracing the Orange's path and meeting the communities and wild places shaped by its relentless flow. Sani Pass is the highest drivable mountain pass in southern Africa, climbing the Drakensberg to nearly 2,876 meters above sea level. Do you know that Sani Pass is one of the few routes where a single hair-raising drive moves you from KwaZulu-Natal's green valleys up into Lesotho's windswept alpine plateau? The road is raw, unpaved, and carved into sheer cliffs with switchbacks that demand skilled 4x4 handling and nerves of steel. Local guides will tell you winters can blanket the pass in snow, turning South Africa's familiar subtropical image into a highland tundra almost overnight. Beyond the adrenaline, the pass is a corridor for unique high-altitude flora and birds found nowhere else in the country. Proteas and tiny alpine daisies cling to rocky ledges, while the Drakensberg rock jumper and endemic larks ride the updrafts above the cliffs. At the summit sits the legendary Sani Top Lodge and what locals proudly call the highest pub in Africa, perched at the edge of Lesotho. Guidebooks often link Sani Pass to nearby attractions like the amphitheatre and Cathedral Peak, forming a continuous mountain story from cliff to summit. Even brief visits leave an imprint. The smell of peat, the sting of altitude, and the staggering viewpoint where two countries meet on a razor of rock. Later in this film, we'll follow the route down from Sani into the lush valleys of KwaZulu-Natal, showing how the mountains feed rivers, farms, and towns below. We'll meet the drivers and shepherds who keep the pass alive and discover how this narrow ribbon of gravel stitches together ecosystems and economies. By the time you see the descent into Underberg, you'll understand how Sani Pass is both a challenge and a lifeline for the people who call these mountains home. Blyde River Canyon in South Africa is one of the largest green canyons on Earth. Its layered quartzite cliffs and dense subtropical foliage forming an unusually verdant gorge. Do you know Blyde River Canyon shelters legacy pockets of ancient scarp forests and rare cycads that survive nowhere else on the planet? From the three Rondavel's ochre domes to the mirror-still pools reflecting sheer walls, the canyon reads like a geological storybook written across millions of years. Rivers such as the Treur and Blyde have braided, carved, and fed these valleys, bringing both flood and fertility. Birds of prey wheel above the cliffs, while elusive bushbuck and samango monkeys move through the canopy, making this reserve a living laboratory for ecological study. Hidden waterfalls drop into emerald basins that harbor endemic fish and amphibians found only in these shaded waters. Geologists still debate the canyon's precise formation, but every exposed stratum records shifts in climate and tectonics across millennia. Field guides here carry stories of rare orchids appearing after fires and lichens that indicate ancient air quality. A visit to Blyde River Canyon is a passage between dramatic vistas and intimate, fragile ecosystems that hinge on water, shade, and time. As pathways wind from high overlooks down into ferned ravines, The landscape teaches why preservation matters beyond the postcard panoramas. Perched on the slopes beneath Table Mountain, the Bo-Kaap is famous for its kaleidoscope of brightly painted houses. Its narrow cobbled streets and low-roofed cottages preserve a living map of Cape Malay heritage and history. Dozens of spice shops and small kitchens fill the air with curry, masala, and searingly sweet Koei sisters. Families still pass down recipes and prayer traditions that trace back to Southeast Asia and the Indian Ocean slave trade. At the heart of the neighborhood stands the Awal Mosque, the oldest in South Africa, quietly witnessing centuries of change. Bo-Kaap Museum occupies a brightly colored home, telling stories of resistance, resilience, and the small rebellions of everyday life. After emancipation, freed people reputedly painted their houses in bold hues to mark freedom and new beginnings. Those colors now form a stunning living archive that tourists photograph, but local memory gives them meaning beyond the picture. In winter, fog sweeps down from Table Mountain and muffles the chiming of mosque bells, folding the neighborhood into a hush. That soft silence makes the bright facades feel almost like signals, signaling stories that demand to be heard and understood. From Bo-Kaap's terraces, you can trace a route toward the V&A waterfront, where fishing boats and global trade continue to reshape Cape Town. The neighborhood is both a portal to the city's maritime past and a living community insisting its narrative be part of the future. Listen carefully here, and you'll hear languages braided together: Malay, Afrikaans, English, Xhosa, each line a thread in Cape Town's tapestry. Bo-Kaap is not merely a postcard, it's a resilient heart that beats with flavors, faith, and an unbroken sense of belonging. This journey ends where South Africa's landscapes refuse to fit inside any single story, from the fynbos-clad slopes of the Cape Floral region to the sweeping savannas of the Kruger. Those fragile flowers are part of one of only 6 floral kingdoms on Earth, bursting with species found nowhere else. Traveling east along the Garden Route, forests spill into cliffs and lagoons, each turn folding one unique ecosystem into the next. The Blyde River Canyon follows, a green gorge carved in slow motion that leads naturally into the misty peaks of the Drakensberg. From the Drakensberg's basalt ramparts, we can drop into KwaZulu-Natal, where Isimangaliso's wetlands hold marine turtles, hippos, and coral reefs in a single embrace. That same coast threads history into the landscape. Robben Island's stone ruins and the Bo-Kaap's painted houses tell of struggles and resilience that shaped the nation. The real invitation is to return differently, with curiosity, responsibility, and the patience to listen to landscapes that have much to teach. So whether your first sight is the silhouette of Table Mountain at dusk, or a sunrise over the Limpopo, know that each view is a doorway to a deeper story. Keep following those doors, and you'll find South Africa not as a destination to be checked off, but as a place that keeps revealing itself, shape by surprising shape.